Hi, Christine. Welcome.
You're all set to go.
All right. Thank you. And good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Clean Energy Commission virtual meeting from March 30th, 2022. This is being recorded. It's available on West Hartford Community Interactive, and you're free to dial in. And I think with no further ado, we'll start. We have in the interest of saving time, I can see the commissioners here. So I'm Bernie here. I chair the commission. Joe Campanella, commissioner, is with us. Max DeBoisson is with us. Dave Mello, Stephen Sack, also commissioner. So we have 5 commissioners. Catherine Deviney is going to join us probably a half hour, 45 minutes late, but she will be here this evening. Christine Feely is a member of the public and often attends these meetings. Thank you, Christine, for joining us. And I want to extend a special welcome to Mason Capone. She's a junior at Conard, and expressing before the meeting started that we have been looking to have outreach to students in West Hartford, young people in general, for a long time. So I believe you are the first to join us in this capacity. If I could ask you to unmute a little bit, and Mason, maybe just give us a thumbnail background and sort of what your interests are and why you're here, and then we'll kick off with the rest of the meeting.
Yeah, of course. So like you said, I'm a junior at Conard High School. I am actually a leader in the Earth Day project that we are doing for the Environmental Club, which is coming up obviously in April. I'm also a ballet dancer. I play field hockey and I play golf, and I'm interested in pursuing environmental science in college.
Wow. So you have a lot of free time is what you're telling us.
Not so much.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to hear. Okay. Catherine posted our commission meeting minutes from our last meeting. Could I get a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Oh, anyone opposed? Great, they are approved. We already talked about our youth representatives. I think there potentially could be a couple others. I know Catherine had heard a few voices. I think some from Hall, some from Conard. So if they join, we'll sort of pause midstream and welcome them aboard too. Jumping, does everybody have the agenda? Let me just quickly. Oh, I did a bad thing here. I crossed that out.
It should be part of the email we got for the log into the meeting. It should have been attached to that.
Yes, exactly. So I'll see if I can flash that up. And I've also managed to make everybody small. So let me stop sharing for a minute here. And I'll find that minutes there just in case. I think what's happening is they're appearing as a tab, so I'll be right back. Could I ask who just dialed in?
Yeah, my name's Michael Dawson, Avon resident on the Clean Energy Commission. So your neighbor to the west.
Oh, this is great. And we actually have Avon on our agenda tonight. Michael Dawson, D-A-W-S-O-N.
Yes.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're just looking to flash up our agenda before we get going here.
Yeah, I don't have the visual. I mean, I have to go to whctv.org.
Let me see here. Hang on one second. I'll give you a link and then you can try to copy link. Michael, can you see the chat?
No.
All right, can you see us?
No, I just clicked on the agenda and then I called in.
Okay. Well,
The agenda.
Please
might
send
have
them an
the
email.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You can send the link to an email.
Send them an email.
all right. Except I don't have Michael's email. So
It's Michael JD9 at, oh no, don't put it on that because computer won't do it. Michael.Dawson at hhchealth.org.
at hhc.org.
No, HHC Health.
All one word.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to try this once. If it doesn't work, we'll just forge ahead. You'll just have to do it the
Okay.
old-fashioned. Bear with me.
Are you Bernie Pelletier?
I am. It says
Okay.
for better, for worse. HSC Health.
Like Hartford Healthcare, HHC.
Yep. I'm a client, Michael. So
Okay.
okay. Well, for better or worse, I think I sent it off. It may bounce back, but we'll forge it. We'll forge ahead. And I'll double back to sharing. We've got. So here's our agenda this evening. We got some quite a bit of old business. Talk a little bit about HeatSmart. We have a follow-up to the SAG presentation that Catherine shared with us last time. That's Sustainability Advisory Group, one of the worst acronyms perhaps ever. Do a little update and strategizing on the business education with the chamber outreach. Ground mount solar, SolSmart, and solar workshop. And Catherine, when she joins, will give us an update on the air quality initiatives underway in the schools and the potential to augment them, perhaps with money from the state, which in turn came from the federal government. So if I could sort of start off with HeatSmart. HeatSmart is well underway. Last time we looked, we've had 113 people express interest in the program, including some town councilors and some town employees. So we're really excited by that. HeatSmart, for those of you who aren't familiar, is it's a community outreach campaign and education campaign, and we're really promoting home energy solutions, which is an efficiency enhancer for residential folks, one to 4 units, so single family homes up to duplexes and 3-family and 4-family homes. And we also have an education element to that with some great contractors to talk about heat pumps, both air source and ground source. And finally, we also have something relatively new to people called an energy concierge or an energy consultant. So any residents in West Hartford can sign up for this, and I have, and you'll get sort of cost-free guidance on how to make your home more efficient what your options are in terms of how you heat your home, how you cool your home, your appliances, and they really stick with you over a period of years. So some education on heat pumps, and access to a energy concierge or energy consultant. That's what HeatSmart is all about. We're really blessed to have a great group of volunteers, some of whom are with us tonight. Christine Feely is one of those. Joe Campanella is on the commission, is helping us, and I think we have 7 or 8 other people working on this. So it's taken off. A couple things to report. On April 24th, we are participating, and the we is both the Clean Energy Commission as well as the HeatSmart team. We are participating in a Earth Day event at 100 Mayflower Street. We're hoping it doesn't rain. If it does rain, we're going to find another venue, which we don't have quite yet. But there are a lot of folks there. In addition to us, there's going to be the Connecticut Horticultural Society. There's going to be a master gardener. They're going to have a trash cleanup. Lots of activities for young and old. So it's going to be a real good event. We're excited to participate. It's not listed on the agenda, but on Monday, Astrid Calderon, who chairs our social services department, sent out a lot of HeatSmart flyers to people in town. So we're hoping that people who are in the social services network are going to have access to this important program. The idea being we might be able to help people lower their utility bills just by making their homes more efficient. So we're really excited because sometimes the people that need it the most don't often get it. And in this case, we're hoping that we can really help those that need it the most. And we're already strategizing on our participation in Celebrate West Hartford. That's going to be June 11th and 12th. And unless COVID really takes a hard turn back to the old days, I think we're going to actually have this event for the first time in 2 years. So we're looking forward to that. And we'll have a table there. It'll be our normal commission representation as well as a HeatSmart representation. We're working on in all of these campaigns. And Christine, maybe I could ask you to just ever so briefly talk about some of the activities that we're working on, so that when people come up to the booth, there's something to do besides hand them a pamphlet.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. We have various activities, mostly games. So we have the information, obviously, that's a key part of it. But we also have some games to reinforce concepts around HES auditing and what gets done, and energy efficiency. So we have a Jeopardy game that we're working on. We have a giant puzzle that will have a house, which is probably something that's familiar in the HeatSmart program. It's a cross section of a house, and it shows the various areas where there's heat loss, and also where the HES contractors and then subsequent actions like insulation. So regular insulation in the walls and the attic and around the ducts and that sort of thing. That sort of thing can get done. So it will be about it'll be at least 6 by 6 feet square, using these foam pads. There's this kinds of foam pads, that you might put in your basement or something, that are interlocking. So we have some students working on painting that from a poster that we have. And we have a Nerf football type game that you throw the football into a slot where there's a net that holds it, and it has also labels. So there's a lot of labels and titles and questions in the Jeopardy that help reinforce all of this, and we think will be fun for kids. And we have prizes for kids, seeds, and some little tiny Lego bags and different things like that. So we have lots going on, not to mention, Bernie, the whole mobile van thing.
Yeah, and actually, to mention the mobile van, we've gone ahead. Some time ago, there used to be the two utilities, which are United Illuminating and Eversource, used to have a facility, a bricks and mortar facility down in North Haven. They closed that, and sort of the quid pro quo was that they would set up a mobile energy exhibit. The idea being that rather than busing people to North Haven from around the state, they would take the exhibit, put it into a 28-foot van, and drive it to where the people are. So that's the world we're in, and we're fortunate to secure it for the 24th, and we think also for the June 11th and 12th. So that mobile van will be there. People will be able to walk in, and there's a variety of interactive exhibits with that as well. So we're really pretty excited to have a bunch of stuff around energy so that we can hopefully excite the public. Actually, just to divert for 1 minute, one of the difficulties is it's a 28-foot van, so we need enough space. This is one of the logistical difficulties for Celebrate West Hartford. We need enough space to get a truck to pull the van in and get the truck out of the way after the fact. So that piece of logistics is being worked out. It won't be a problem on the 24th because that's a big parking lot at 100 Mayflower Street. Christine, thank you for that update, and thank you for what you're doing on getting those games.
You're welcome.
Jumping down to the SAG presentation, just we won't go through that. Catherine took us through that in pretty much detail. I think work is still going on buttoning down the next steps, but one next step that has been buttoned down is that this Friday at 10 o'clock, myself as the chair of the Energy Commission and the two chairs from Bike Ped and the Conservation and Environment Committee are going to get together and talk about how we might, from our three commission standpoints, how we might work better together. And that was a direct recommendation of the SAG. One thing I'd love to have a little bit of discussion on and get all the commission input on. I guess this is a conversation of what do we want to be when we grow up. Right now, we are a commission, albeit for some good and legitimate legal reasons. I think we're not supposed to be formed by resolution. We are formed by resolution. We're not supposed to have staff members as members. We have staff members as members, so we're somewhat out of compliance. And I guess we've come to realize that as people started to focus on these issues. But rather than try to fix that, since we think we're entering into a new world, we're going to wait until we sort of nail down things, and then we'll deal with that. But from my standpoint, the Clean Energy Commission, we want to do a couple things. We want to give expert advice to the town. And if I could just embarrass the committee members that are on now, Joe Campanella is an architect, and he's experienced in green architecture, at least some elements of that. My favorite person to embarrass is David Mello. He's a rocket scientist. He used to work for the Department of Energy, and probably has several secrets that if he told them to us, he would have to kill us. So far, he's spared us that danger. Max Duboisson, you work on carbon trading and carbon, what would you call it? Sequestering carbon through financial means. Is that the
Yeah, and these days with a focus on regenerative agriculture.
Regenerative agriculture? Stephen, you are energy dealer. So you sell oil, but one reason you're on the Clean Energy Commission is because of the sort of the direction forward. You want to just talk a second about where you're headed with biofuels?
So our company has a long history of, start off as coal and then switch to oil. And then through the years, we reduced the sulfur content in heating oil. And now we're in the process of replacing the fuel oil with renewable biodiesel. And so that's coming on very strong, and we're a pretty big leader in Southern New England, distributing that throughout to retailers that go house to house, putting that in there, and also using it in the diesel fuel to replace regular diesel fuel.
And so that's a significant and immediate direction forward in terms of carbon reduction. If we can use bioheat and biofuels that are produced in a sustainable fashion, we can get a quick reduction. And I think in the last legislative session, there was approval. I'm not going to know exactly what it is, but it's a requirement, I guess, that all diesel and heating fuels will be, Stephen, is it 50% bioheat by 2035? Is that the number?
Yes, by 2035, it'll be 50%. It's only on heating oil, not diesel fuel right now,
Okay, so
the law.
but the reason I wanted to take everybody through that rundown is there are some serious experts on this commission. And so one reason to have this group of people together, and this is what I want to communicate to the other commissions on Friday, is we want to deliver expertise. We want to help. West Hartford is blessed by having a lot of residents who are both involved and knowledgeable. And we think it's just an asset that's too good to not be tapped and supplied to the town. So that to me is one function of our commission, is just to share expertise. Another thing, and I guess HeatSmart would be an example. Before that, in 2013, we led a Solarize campaign in the town, is really to reach out and engage the residents. We have 25,000 households in this town. We have several thousand businesses. Everybody is doing their own thing, but you can make a big difference just by educating those 25,000 households on what's available to them, and the many thousand businesses here what's available to them. So we want to do outreach to the public. And so those are the big things that I think we as a commission want to do. Let me just ask the question generally, what else would a commissioner want to do, so that I can sort of have it in my head as I talk to Bike Ped and Conservation Environment? It's a heavy question.
Well, are we putting the cart before the horse a little bit, that we need to evaluate all the commissions and different groups underneath the town council to come to us for some advice or input before they go on their own, and maybe streamline all the commissions. There's so many commissions that we need to streamline it and really get some definitions as to what where each commission plays in.
I think you're 100% right. And I was mostly wanting to just talk about what might be in the cart. And I wasn't even going to hook it up to the horse. But what you described is the purpose, and there will be this meeting of three. So I guess you could call it a summit. Will be the beginning of a more public process. I think that will do just what you said, Stephen. I think it will scope out what we're all doing. What are the gaps? What needs to be done? What are the failings? Like, are we communicating with the people that we need to communicate? All that will get covered there. But I think it is worthwhile to start to think about how we view ourselves. And So we don't have to have more conversation on that. I just, if you have thoughts on where we ought to be going, let's start to get those sort of on the table. Okay. The next item, anything else on the SAG and this meeting on the 10th, this Friday, I should say, at 10 o'clock? Okay. Stephen, you brought up, I guess you introduced, you spoke to a group in Elmwood, and I think Kristen Gorski from Economic Development was there as well, and really drummed up some excitement for this utility program called SBEA, Small Business Energy Advantage. It's something that's been on our radar screen for a long time. We've not been successful, but we're hopeful, because you have a lot more connections in the business community than we have, that you might be able to be successful. So, Stephen, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but where did we leave it? I think you connected Kristen to an auditor.
Yeah, so Kristen's kind of leading it up. What she's trying to do is have one or maybe two meetings with, because where this, let me go back a little bit, where I'm coming from is being part of the Elmwood Business Association. There's a bunch of different associations, the Elmwood Business, the West Hartford Center, Bishop's Corner, and trying to, maybe a couple other ones too that I don't know about, Park Road Association, getting them all together to listen to on, like the HES audits, but it's on the commercial side, and get all the businesses together to try and listen in and see if, it can take hold and get some guys involved, because I think it was a number of years ago when it was tried last time, but the program is much more enhanced now than it was back then. So I think Kristen is trying to set a date and communicating with the other business association through the town and find a date to do this.
And from your standpoint, I have lost sight of it. Is it still moving, or is it something we ought to prod a little bit just to make sure it doesn't get lost? Is it still active?
I think it is. I will see her Friday at the Elmwood Business Association meeting and find out.
All right.
And make sure this thing's still on course. I think they're talking maybe in April or May time meeting.
All right. If you would do that and maybe update us, I'll make an offer. Your facility is down on Jansen Road, I think, and you're right next to one of these auditors. That's sort of one way you're really connected to this process.
Yeah, one of my neighbors, Environmental Services Corporation, they do a lot of work for the town also, but they're very large, family-owned business, and they're very large into the commercial energy audits.
If this is an offer, it doesn't have to come to pass, especially if this thing is moving on its own. We don't have to go here, but it might be really good if ESC, I should say, wanted to do like a 15 or 20-minute presentation to this group next session. That might be a way for us to, keep things moving along. Maybe we could even get Kristen or somebody to join.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that I don't think this meeting is necessarily closed off to business association meetings. So it's open almost to anybody who wants to listen in to the presentation.
That would be another. So are you meeting physically these days, or hybrid, or just on Zoom?
We're meeting physically, yes.
All right. So it would be possible for a member of, like, one of us to join, for example.
For the Elmwood Business Association?
Yeah.
Yeah. 8:30 at the Gastro Park.
And what's the date again?
Friday.
This upcoming Friday. Great.
Yes. Yep. 8:30 at the Gastro Park. It's a normal Elmwood Business Association meeting. And Kristen's usually there.
Great. Yeah, because this is really and truly, if we get HeatSmart going, that's going to hopefully help a lot of residents. And if we're able to get small business energy advantage going, that's going to help a lot of businesses. So it'd be really super if we could get both of these things moving on at the same time. Excellent. The next agenda item, ground mounted solar.
Bernie, can I just add something to that?
Yes, indeed.
I'm sorry, I had my mute button on. Steve, I was just going to suggest that whether you can get this Environmental Service Corporation involved or not, it might be a good idea to see if they couldn't print up, you know, some kind of case study document that you could hand out to businesses so that they could become and have something to take with them, showing them the savings, the potential savings that they can achieve, I guess, and
Yeah,
kind of lending.
I completely agree. I don't know what they're going to have. They may have something, but some of the issue is that every business is kind of different, or building's different. Some may need for like air conditioning, windows, this or that. So it's really just I think a kind of larger overview of things that can go, and hopefully to pique up interest, and then you could specify in as different types of buildings of what each building's needs are.
Yeah, maybe you could just reprint the thing that I sent you that had the case studies of the different types of buildings.
Yeah, perfect.
And hand that out. I don't know if our new logo is on it or what kind of logo is on it, but at least there's some takeaway that they can begin to think. If they're a restaurant or if they're a convenience store, you know, what is it that I'm going to be thinking about? Refrigeration or insulation or, you know what? So.
Yeah, I know he's got some stuff here I'm looking at on electric vehicle charging stations. You know, they now have new programs for that. I know he's, you know, they get involved in that stuff too. But you emailed that to me? Or I don't know.
Yeah, a long time ago. Whenever you first got involved, I sent you pretty much all of our documents on.
Okay.
And I'll resend it.
Yeah.
We were working with the chamber initially, and we had decided, because we had tried the strategy of going to the organizations, the local organizations, and not getting much interest, we decided that we would try to focus more on, you know, one building type at a time. And for the reason that you just suggested, is that all businesses have different for becoming more energy efficient and what they can do to become more energy efficient. So yeah, that material was sent. If you need me to send it again, just shoot me an email.
Okay. Yeah, let me find it. And I think you're talking about the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce.
That's who we were trying to work with. Yeah. And
So
before that, we.
Yep, they're involved in this too. So they're in the middle.
Yeah,
of
no,
it.
they wouldn't have that information though, Steve. You wouldn't be getting that from them.
Yeah.
You're getting it from me.
Yeah. No, but yeah, they're definitely involved. You know, reaching out to their members too. So, all right, I'll send you an email so you can send it to me, and I can send it into Kristen to have that also.
Joe, I think you really have a good idea there, because I'll just pass on. I can share this too. Believe it or not, I did this presentation to the Episcopalian Diocese of Connecticut, and you know, this is a case study. It really comes from the utilities, and this one's a restaurant. So of course, there's all sorts of different businesses, but anybody I think this is where you're going, Joe. Is any business owner looks at it and says, okay, it could be lighting, it could be refrigeration, it could be things, your ducts or your heating system, could be aerators on your faucets. There's a whole host of others. This is a particular case. You know, it costs money, it saves energy. This is the savings over here, this annual energy savings. This goes to Stephen, your point about how rich this program is. is you can get $18,000 worth of upgrades. You can get a coupon, if you will, for $11,000 off in this case. So it means that you get that $18,000 worth of goods for $7,000. And they tell you how much energy you're going to save and how much money you're going to save. And so in this case, the payback is under 2 years. You know, you spend $7,000 and you save $4,000 a year, sort of for the life of the equipment. So I think something like that is a really powerful piece. And so we can look at what Joe had. We can look at pamphlets, but by all means, we should put something in their hands to.
Yeah, Joe, have the programs been improved and more incentives today versus the one you gave me 2 years ago? You think? Because I don't know it all that well. I understand it, but I'm not deep into the weeds of all the programs they have.
I would guess no. The answer no. I think it's, you know, the same. It may be better in some respects. I don't know. A lot of the businesses that I was working with it were a little leery of the pricing by the approved contractors who seem to use, you know, the pricing that they get from SBEA and kind of stick to that, and that's pretty good. You know, budget numbers for them, they can make money on that. So I don't know whether there's more, you know, oversight of the estimation construction cost part of it, but I still think that it's loans that are up to $100,000, and it's payable over a 4-year period at 0% interest. So it's
my guess is that whatever was 2 or 3 years ago is probably much more enhanced today.
It could be.
Yeah.
And you know what? Whether it is or it isn't, we should present the program that there is today, because we don't want to tell them something from a couple of years ago that they can't get if indeed it was.
Yeah.
But my guess is that Joe is right. I don't think it's the program, the bones of the program, the outline of the program is the same. So we got to look at that material, and the goal being let's give them something to chew on and get started.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No. I like dollars and cents for these guys. They understand it much better, and it piques their interest to take the next step to look deeper into it.
Bernie, can you explain that net profit theory and how that works? Because that's right to Steve's point. Steve, basically every business, you know, produces a widget, let's say. It costs that company so much money to produce that widget, and a certain amount of that is a cost of energy. If they're not spending that dollar in energy, then they're putting that dollar in their pocket. Bernie,
Yeah.
right? Remember we had that discussion that it's a
I think
reciprocal.
I think, Joe, we're posing a hypothetical. So we take a businessman like Stephen, we say, Stephen, you have a choice. You can have $1 of extra revenue, so you can sell another gallon of fuel or whatever, or you can cut $1 off of your cost of doing business. Which one is more valuable? $1 of revenue or $1 of cost savings? And depending on what your sort of gross margins are, you might have to, typically most businesses might have a gross margin of, I don't know, 10 cents or something like that, which means that they need to sell $10 worth of goods in order to get $1 of
$1.
Whereas if you save $1 of cost, that flows immediately to your bottom line. So with no increase in sales, no increase in anything else, your profit goes up. So that's the point. I think, Joe, we had a lot of conversations about that. It's just so valuable to lower your cost of doing business. And then to double back to Stephen, what you said about the price of fuel right now, it's just so volatile. So in addition to dealing with the cost, if you can lower your exposure to a volatile cost, that's even better. So there's compelling arguments to make, I think, to the business person about energy efficiency.
It should be an easy thing to sell, and for whatever reason, it's not. But good luck with it.
Oh, I agree. It's I look at I do the math differently and look at it and say, hey, you're going to spend $100,000, amortize it over a 5-year, 6-year period, and you're going to reduce your cost of energy by X amount. You got your money. You're going to be even in 5 years or 6 years, and then the savings from there on in. And that's what they're kind of looking at, of how to look at and amortize it over a time period and how quickly they get a return on their investment.
That doesn't always work, though. I guess that's the point. And if I can find this email from Selling Energy, it was an all-day seminar I went to. I'll send it to you because it explains it better, and it doesn't explain it using, your payback period. That doesn't work for everybody.
And the reality is,
including. Go ahead.
Yeah, when you get in your car, or some cars anyway, you've got a speedometer and you've got a tachometer and you have a temperature gauge and a pressure gauge. And to me, payback period, like the measure that Stephen was talking about, that's one measure. I think return on equity or return on investment is another kind of measure. Lowering your cost of goods sold is another measure. So I think there's multiple ways to come at this from a business person standpoint. So a lot of arguments to make. And by the way, the discussion we're having for an individual West Hartford business could translate directly to our town government as well. When we lower the cost, and we have. If Catherine was here, she could tell you how much money we have saved or avoided by virtue of all the efficiency steps that the town has taken over time. And that's really insulated us to a certain extent. Okay. Thanks, guys. That was a good discussion. A couple quick things.
Can I ask a question about that? I just put in the chat box, but I was a little slow to realizing I could do that. Is the problem with selling something that would, on the surface seem like a no-brainer with this SBEA incentives? Is the problem that most of these businesses don't own their space, they're renting, and so the incentive of the actual owner is like not there? Could that be the problem?
That's definitely a problem. I call it the split incentive. You have the owner of the property and you have the tenant or the lessor of the property. And sometimes their interests coincide and sometimes they don't. So Stephen happens to own his property, so he's all about making it as efficient as possible. I would say a couple things. So yes, first, let me just acknowledge the premise of your question. It's definitely an issue, and it's actually something that across all sectors is something we have to grapple with. But here in town, I know many businesses have been here for literally decades and living in rented spaces. And of course, nobody knows what's going to happen to them, especially in the age of COVID and all the stuff we see on the news every day. But it's clearly possible to make a capital improvement from the tenant can initiate a capital improvement if they work it out with the landlord. And the landlord, if they're open-minded, will say, okay, I'm going to keep Bernie Incorporated here for another 10 years. After that, who knows? if Bernie Incorporated decides to go elsewhere or goes out of business or whatever, I'm left with an improved property. I have improved HVAC, I have improved insulation, it might be building shell improvements, it might be lighting, controls. So as long as the tenant is going to be there and initiates it, they'll be the beneficiary of lower energy costs. If the tenant vacates, the building owner will have a property with better mechanicals and a better selling proposition. So, but that's a hard argument to have. Anybody else? That's a really good point, and we'll save this chat. We by the way on HeatSmart see that. So let's just say, let me pick on Dave Mello as the exemplar. If he has a home energy solutions audit, but he's renting his home, Dave doesn't rent his home, but let's pretend he did. They can make certain sort of improvements on site without really much difficulty. But if they recommend insulation, Dave is only renting. The insulation would go into the structure that's owned by somebody else. And so certainly you need to consult with the owner of the property. That's one thing. And you would have to make sure they were okay with it. But I think on something as heavily incentivized as insulation, for example, even if Dave decides he's going to move to another place, the owner of his building is going to have a better building, and that's just true of all sorts of things. So, good point. We had. I'm going to scoot down the agenda. We had a ground-mounted solar agenda item here. We really haven't made any progress on that. This dates back, I'm going to say 3, perhaps 4 years ago, when the town restricted putting ground-mounted solar on smaller lots in town. So if you can envision in your mind what a ground mount looks like, some of them are inappropriate to have in a small residential lot that might be 60 by 100 or something like that. We're reviewing it from our hope is to review it from 2 standpoints. One, is it overly restrictive? And 2, are there within the bounds of the ground mounted solar regulations as now written, are there modes of ground mounts that may be possible that people just don't know about and aren't taking advantage? So for example, it did not preclude over your driveway like a solar canopy. So lots of people around town, you'll see they have some sort of makeshift device. There might be some metal poles or wooden poles, and they'll have some fiberglass covering over the top. That's allowed. There's no reason that couldn't be solar panels instead. So there may be opportunities even without reforming the regulation to get more solar. So that's what that agenda item is. But to repeat, we haven't made any progress on that. SolSmart is an initiative, and Michael, I don't know if out in Avon, if you're looking at this also, but it's I think recently Sustainable CT hosted a webinar. We had somebody from, I think, Great Plains offering to help us get SolSmart. It really is a program that would allow the town to make it easier for people to adopt solar in town. And it's kind of, there's 3 levels. The bronze level is what we're looking at. And to a large extent, we think that without any real serious implications for the way we're doing business now, we could probably qualify for bronze status. Oh, Catherine joined us, so she can. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, I'm sorry I'm late.
I think you picked a great time to join. So, did I get that right on SolSmart?
I didn't hear the beginning of SolSmart. But we are ready to get going. So we had some internal discussions and everyone's in agreement, the Building Services Department and Community Services, that we're gonna proceed with this technical assistance program and at least establish where we are in terms of a baseline for the SolSmart program and work towards bronze. So we have submitted a letter of interest already, and I think it's tomorrow or maybe next week. I have a kickoff meeting with our technical advisor from SolSmart.
Excellent. And we're not thinking this is a big expense or anything burden on the town. This is pretty much, with a few tweaks, what we're doing now, maybe making it more apparent what we're doing now by having some website improvements or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think it's going to provide the impetus to do some things that we've wanted to do, but maybe have been put on the back burner. So it'll kick us into gear on a few things we've been meaning to do anyway.
And if I could just interrupt and introduce Catherine, you know most of us, but I know you've corresponded with Mason from Conard. So
hey, glad to have you.
Thank you for having me.
And I don't think you know Michael Dawson, but Michael is joining us from Avon.
Awesome.
So that's great, and it actually is timely because we have Avon on our agenda this evening. So that's great.
Michael's, you're on the Clean Energy Commission in Avon, or?
Yes, I am.
Gotcha. Okay.
And incidentally, you mentioned SolSmart. I had stumbled upon them with web searches, and I contacted them on my own, not with the larger commission, just to get some information. And I thought that they don't help individuals. They help like the town. They work
Yes.
for the town. Is that okay?
Yeah. This is a program for the town to assess not only the education and outreach, kind of the information they put out there, but also the processes and systems in place just to accelerate solar adoption. So whether it's through education or through facilitating the process, the permitting system, all of that, it's a municipal certification.
So I would say SolSmart helps the town help its residents. That's sort of.
Yes.
And while we're on the topic of helping residents with solar, that's our next agenda item. Old business, Catherine, we have April 19th booked at the West Hartford Library.
We do. That's a tentative date right now. Bernie and I have located the correct people at EverSource to participate in that webinar. So if that date works for EverSource to be part of a webinar to explain some of the program pieces of it, then we will buckle down and put together a slide deck and kind of flesh out more of what we want that webinar to look like. Not getting too deep into the weeds, but I'm thinking something like, having a resident with solar on, so maybe one of you guys, and also showing a lot of photos that Joe has taken over the year of houses with solar on them, some very tasteful applications in the town itself. And we'll just go from there, kind of keep it pretty low key, but make sure that residents leave with an understanding that there are new solar programs out there and how they can get more information if they're interested in doing solar.
And the impetus for this is that the program has changed, maybe not so much, but behind the scenes, it used to be, up until December of this year, it used to be the Green Bank running this program, the RSIP, Residential Solar Incentive Program, RSIP. Now it's really Eversource and UI who are running the solar program. And the net, to go in the weeds, and I'll pop right out, the net metering program that we had before December 31st has been tweaked and changed. Not too much different. I don't really think it's not that much worse, I'll say. It's still pretty good. Let me say it that way, be positive. In addition, there is another form. You can get what they call buy all solar, which is to say you or sell all solar. So you can put solar on a roof and just sell it back and get 30 cents a kilowatt hour, something along those lines. So that's an option that did not exist for residents before this 2022. So there's a need to sort of refresh people's understanding of what solar is about.
Yeah, I think that's 20.9 cents, that front of the meter new program that I heard. It's not quite 30, but yeah, it sounded very enticing.
Yeah, and I'm glad, if I'm wrong, I'm glad you corrected me. So at one point it was almost 30 cents, but maybe it got knocked down when it finally got implemented. And Michael, one thing that I think we would do is West Hartford will promote it, but if we have Eversource on, we would invite other towns. We would invite people across the state to join it, because it's a program that would make sense for everybody. And even though our goal in West Hartford is to crush the other 168 towns in Connecticut solar adoption, we're so confident of ourselves that we'll even share this webinar. But kidding aside.
So, yeah, the library actually says they have a fair amount of participation in their programs from non-West Hartford residents. And I know they have a very large mailing list, so.
Yeah. And yeah, so hopefully we'll get Eversource. Hopefully we'll get some a resident or two. And I also believe we could reach out to some of the folks that we've worked with over the years, for example, Earthlight, or some other solar installer who is actually doing this. The idea being to make it accessible to people. All right. Catherine, do you want to talk a little bit about air quality projects and capital improvement programs and potential for more dollars falling from heaven? You are on mute. A phrase that gets said 1,000,000 times a day these days.
Yeah. Yeah, so just to give you all an update, since we have talked about this at previous meetings, the town does have in its capital improvement budget money, as you can see on the agenda, it says $3 million per year for 15 years. So, well, that's $45 million, which sounds like a lot. It's over 15 years, and it's going towards elementary school air quality projects at 9 different schools. The first of those schools are going to be Duffy and Webster Hill. And the update I just wanted to give you was that we have conducted interviews already to hire architects for those projects, which will be done not this summer, but next summer of 2023. And the projects consist of, at Duffy at least, new windows, as well as looking at ventilation systems, fresh air systems, and air quality. At Webster Hill, I can't remember whether windows are part of it or not. The schools are slightly different. Yes, I think they are, actually. Yes. So it's both kind of windows and the mechanical ventilation. So we had a selection committee, which was Robert Palmer, our director of plant and facilities. I was on the selection committee, as well as Mike Longo, who is the maintenance manager for West Hartford Public Schools. And we interviewed several firms, and we have decided to award, and I won't say who because it's not public yet, but we have decided to award the 2 schools separately to different architect and engineering firms, thinking that, you know, these are the first 2 of 9 projects, and it might be, although that means a little extra work in terms of meeting times and things like that. It was really Mike Longo's idea that to have that extra brain power and to be able to play ideas of each firm off each other might yield some additional benefits.
Sure.
So we're going to go that route, and we should be awarding those 2 projects next week. Now, what we've discussed in this group and came up as well in the interviews with these firms, and as you sit through interviews, you know, a lot of people present projects they've done in the past and glitzy projects and projects with huge fat budgets. So we listened to a variety of projects, and you know, it's no surprise that the funding for the projects that we're doing is pretty lean, and there is a glimmer, you know, nothing definite, but that towns are going to be receiving some additional federal funding, and that whereas before the feeling was that if West Hartford received any additional funding, federal funding that could be put towards capital improvement projects like these, that money would go to, in fact, replace the $3 million that would come from taxpayers like yourselves. So the federal funding, the budget for these projects would stay the same, just the source of the funding would be different. There is an idea now that should we receive additional funding, Bob Palmer is under the impression that he would fight hard and might have some traction to supplement those budgets. So the federal funding would be in addition to the $3 million per year for 15 years. Does that make sense? I just wanted to share that update. Nothing is set in stone right now, but that's the direction that we're hoping to pursue.
And Catherine, if I'm Mason listening to this, Mason, did you go to elementary school in West Hartford?
Yeah, I actually went to Duffy.
Yeah.
Cool.
So you're at Conard. So Conard has air conditioning, and it has a mechanical ventilation. So you can turn the fans on and off. You can, in something like today's environment, you can, with COVID, you want to have more air flowing through there for obvious reasons. But in the older schools, I guess you could say they're ventilated by the fact that they're just not very tight buildings. They're leaky as all get out, which is bad on the one hand from an energy standpoint, but good on the other hand because fresh air does manage to get into that building. So what Catherine is talking about is introducing the idea of ventilation, modern ventilation, into these schools, which are what, from 1935?
50s. Most of our schools are early 50s. Some of them date back to the late 20s, but a lot of the elementary schools were built in the 50s. You guys would get a kick out of this. Some people we interviewed actually went to Duffy. We told that it hasn't changed much since. Yeah.
And yeah,
So-
go ahead, Joe.
Well, I was just wondering, you know, was there there are obviously qualifications for the architects. Was there any qualification that at least they have a partner that's you know, LEED certified? Not that the projects have to be LEED, but you know, it's kind of a thought process that you learn when you go through that training. And I don't know. I hope that, you know, there was some kind of qualification in the RFQ or P or whatever it is.
There was not that type of qualification requirement built in. There was no LEED accredited professional requirement for this project. There was language. These were were pretty simple RFP documents, but there was language, we did insert language around in there around looking at different options that focused on energy efficiency, heat recovery, different technologies, as well as looking at the life cycle cost of those options, as well as ease of maintenance, emissions impact, and things like that. I forget. I think the exact wording was included in the minutes from last time. I pulled that part of that section of the RFP out and included it in the minutes. So I don't have those in front of me, but maybe someone else does.
Yeah, I'll read. Thank you, Catherine. Language was included around energy efficiency options, asking for, quote, recommendations to the heating, air conditioning, energy recovery, and potential to use heat pump technology. The town emphasizes the need for the best long-range strategy for the school, which should consider indoor air quality, energy efficiency, reduced greenhouse gas emissions, and ease of operation and maintenance. So yeah, there wasn't the lead per se, but I think that was a pretty good indication that we were concerned about energy efficiency and air quality and greenhouse gas reduction. And could I follow, Joe? I'm glad you said something. You appointed, or we nominated you to be appointed to the
building committee.
Yeah, the building committee to be have you received any notice from the town, or is that?
Joe, is the new building committee. This is for the new Elmwood Community Center that will be built at 100 Mayflower Street. Joe is our representative to the building committee. Yeah, what have you heard?
No, I was expecting an email from Rubino Turco, and but I've got nothing. Maybe I should check my junk, but right.
Well,
so I don't know, Catherine, if you could double back on that, just figure out whether I should be receiving something soon or they've already reached out to the committee. I've got nothing.
Okay, I'll find out. I don't know honestly whether that committee has met yet or not, or whether they're still identifying members, because I was, Helen was CC'd, I was CC'd, so they clearly know that you're our appointee. So I will make sure that you're not missing any emails or meetings.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't see anything. So
okay,
please, thank you.
And Joe, the central point that you brought up was, even before a project is commissioned, and to express as early in the process the strategic priorities of the town around air quality and sort of whatever green attributes we want to put there. And we do have a climate emergency resolution which has passed, which speaks to this point. Mason, you'd be happy to know that some of your classmates in other schools have really worked hard on getting that through, and it really demands that take place. And we have an energy plan as well, which certainly points in that direction. And why it's so important for somebody like Joe to have a voice there is, without somebody like that there, it can just be a budgetary issue, dollars and cents. And if we have these other points we want to get into the thinking, namely quality and greenhouse gas reduction and energy efficiency, we need somebody like Joe to carry that water. And hopefully eventually it'll just be a matter of routine. It'll always be that way. But for now, that's not the world we're in.
I honestly, I think with new construction like that I don't think, I think they'll be amenable to being LEED certified. So I think I would that should be in the RFP. LEED gold or
you think
silver.
there would be a requirement that they're LEED certified?
Yes, I think we can probably
Okay.
get that in the RFP. I don't think anyone's going to fight that with a new construction project of that size. I would like to push for that new building to try and attain net zero and have that in the discussion up front. So I think, Joe, you and I should talk, because
Yeah.
there was some discussion of that in the feasibility interviews, the interviews for the feasibility consultant who was hired. And I was part of that selection committee as well. So you and I should talk before the first building committee, because I don't think any of these things are off the table yet.
Hey,
I think we can push hard for them.
I believe that if I remember reading, they want to make this building a net zero building. So
Sherry did. The Mayor Cantor did mention that at the event that they held on the grounds. Yes.
So that's yeah, it's great, and I think she'll need help. I think it's great that she said that publicly, and now I think that we have to help make her aspiration come true, which I think we will. Great. And Catherine, in the interviews and then the people you spoke to, is there sort of a odds that we will get additional funding that will go beyond the $3 million amount, or is it just we don't know yet on the school ventilation?
Oh, we're back to school ventilation. TBD.
TBD.
I don't have any more information at this stage. I don't even think they know how much funding is coming. Maybe they do. I haven't been party to those conversations.
I think to the extent that we should just keep reminding them, because I'm sure when money arrives, it's already spoken for a few times, but let's keep our voices there. And on that front, we've been reading about West Hartford receiving grants for electric vehicles and electric vehicle, I can never remember, SE infrastructure, charging infrastructure, EV chargers.
Supply equipment.
Supply equipment, thank you. And you have a little bit progress report on that?
Yes. So some of you might have seen, it was in the paper that West Hartford received a grant. It was from the CTDOT program, CMAQ, which stands for, as you can see on the agenda, Congestion Mitigation Air Quality program. Anyway, we did receive a grant of about $20,000. It was a grant that I wrote in conjunction with Bob Palmer, the Director of Plant and Facilities. And the grant, the award was actually cut back from what we originally asked for. The grant proposal was for 2 Chevy Bolt all-electric vehicles, as well as a charging station. And originally we were going to get funding for the full amount of the vehicles, and somewhere in the application process, CDOT decided that only the incremental cost of an electric vehicle above the price of a regular ICE vehicle was eligible. So the grant got cut back substantially. That process took over 1 year to award the grant. So as you can imagine, a lot of things, a lot of moving parts, and a lot of things have shifted in the course of 1 year. So we have this grant money, but needless to say, we were going to kind of have some internal meetings to revisit this grant and how we're going to use it. And we're in discussions with the grantor, CDOT, right now as well, so that we can get our ducks in a row. One thing that has changed is the town is looking more holistically at EVSE, the charger or the supply equipment side of things. Um, we're not ready to jump on anything yet, but thinking about, how do we build out a system where, what locations, and what brand, and, do we charge for them or not charge for them? All these questions for a town-wide system of municipal-owned electric vehicle stations. These would be the municipal-owned ones, and there would also be some, obviously, privately owned ones throughout the town as well. Anyway, so that piece of it has changed because the town, through a grant like this, does not want to be installing onesie, twosie electric vehicle stations around when we might build out a system.
Yeah.
The other thing that has changed is electric vehicles aren't readily available right now. And obviously the cost of those vehicles has increased. So needless to say, we have this grant. We're in the process of kind of reevaluating it, reviewing it, not only on whether the cost has increased, but there might be parts of it that we do and parts that we don't do, and how it might fit in with a broader program on electric vehicle charging infrastructure that the town's looking at. So I think we will move forward at some point, but right now we're kind of a little bit back to the drawing board to figure out how that funding would fit in.
And Catherine, that second bullet point there, municipal planning in general, are those open? Is there any way for us to participate in that planning process, or is that just getting lifted off, or where are we on that sort of holistic view of EV charging?
Right now, the one thing that's been decided is that Public Works is going to lead this effort. So I think they're figuring out how they're going to initiate that process, whether they're going to do it themselves, hire a consultant, how that fits in. I know that they and I have been attending webinars on the Eversource electric vehicle charger funding that's come down. I don't think that funding's going to run out as soon as people think it is. I asked some direct questions on a webinar the other day, and was given some new information that funding is a 9-year program, but it comes in 3-year buckets. So they can spend year 1 to year 3 funding up front. So that was good news to me, because I've been hearing that towns better get their applications in soon, because the funding's going to run out. But the Eversource guy literally said he doesn't think the funding will run out this year or next year. So that buys us a little time, because I think we were feeling a little bit of pressure around moving quickly versus taking the time to answer some of these questions that I just talked to you about locations and about platforms and brands and things like that.
It's one of the great joys in life, is to work hard for a deadline that turns out to be a little bit later and a little bit easier to meet than you thought it was, and then you're there. So that's
yeah, fingers crossed. Who knows? But
fingers are definitely crossed. Okay. Well, Michael Dawson, I don't know why exactly you're with us this evening, but I'm glad that you are, because this agenda item, Avon, the Connecticut River Valley Energy Fair, which I think is May 14th. I'll just give a little bit of background. For a long time, the Avon Commission has been chaired by a great guy, Bernie Zeron. I know Bernie. With a name like Bernie, how can you go wrong, right? But he was recently, I think the town government turned over. I think you have a new chairperson out there, Carrie Lenarkic Firestone, and I think she kind of, just in the same way that Catherine Deviney lives up to the divine part of her name in terms of her contribution, I think Carrie, with her last name of Firestone, lives up to her name. She's really re-energizing that commission to a certain extent. I talked to her and Christine Winter, I think one of your fellow commissioners, and they want to have an energy fair, I think on May 14th. I think they picked a venue, and I said, we should start to share these events, and energy is energy, and cars are cars, and insulation is insulation. Whether we get it exhibited in Avon and we go over the mountain, or we have something here and they come over the mountain, it's all good. So that's why that's there. As details come in, I think we'll just cross promote this and try to get people to take advantage of whatever they bring, whatever quote attractions that they bring. So that's
Yeah,
why.
Carrie's great. I believe it was her idea, and you know, she does have an interest in you know, reducing waste or kind of recycling waste for energy, which I don't know that much about, but it sounds great. And you know, and she did want to have this fair as part of like the educational piece and outreach to the community. I'm sorry I was gone for a few minutes. My computer is still rebooting. Something, I don't know what happened, but now I'm using a phone. You know, the reason I went on this meeting is because you know, Carrie said, you know, reach out to some of the other towns, you know, that know what they're doing. So, and get some advice, you know, what works, what doesn't. So I was wanted to listen, probably ask a few questions later, but if not, you know, I'll have a chance when you guys, well, Bernie and Mark Scully present at our next meeting. That's all I'll say.
Right. Well, just in general, I think I speak for all of us. We just welcome crosstown cooperation, and everybody. I think we can just do so much more together than we can apart. I like to think of us as having 169 chances to get things right because of the way we're set up in Connecticut. We just share a little bit, so that's welcome. So really more to follow, and that's we have our own April 24th event, which we'll ask Avon to attend as well, just in the spirit. Catherine, I don't know if you've got anything on energy. We're in budget season, right? And God bless you for trying to budget what's going on now. You are on mute again.
Yes, we are in budget season, but the energy budget for next year, we finalized in December. What I was hoping to bring tonight, and yet again, I apologize. I almost got it today, but I didn't have enough time. And as I was looking at the numbers, I have to work with them a little bit. So I think I'm going to finish this week, and how about I will email around to all of you by my energy summaries of the town side and the West Hartford Public Schools side, just to give you a sense of where we are. I do know that our energy use has been up this year. Not only was it cold, but our buildings were occupied again, and we are still running COVID ventilation schedules. So I don't actually, I haven't done the update in several months, so I don't actually know whether we're going to come in on budget or a little bit above budget. But the way West Hartford does its what we call the Utility Services Fund, which all the utility bills are paid out of, we manage that. So if there is a surplus or a deficit one year, we're protected, and we have kind of a balance in that fund that can go up or down, and serve as a little bit of cushion when there's some uncertainty in either energy pricing. That was another thing that hit us this year as well, with some of the winter pricing on natural gas that we weren't expecting. So I will send that. I promise I will finish that up and send that around. I know I've been saying that for several meetings, and I apologize. It seems like you know, maybe I should. Seems that now I'm going back into the office more. You get distracted, whereas when you're at home, you can focus on a spreadsheet for an entire day.
This is just kibitzing, and I bet you Stephen and maybe others have a broader view than I do, but I think whether we're buying natural gas, whether we're buying petroleum, whether we're consuming electricity, I think all of those are now international commodities in a world that it just seems like the price, it would have to be a miracle, I think, for prices to come down, and a miracle for which I pray on humanitarian grounds. But it does seem like America is, a lot of our energy is going to have to go and remedy or supplement what's over in Europe, and I just don't see that driving. I think that's just going to drive prices up. So, but that's neither here nor there, I guess, for the budget. Okay. Great. Okay. We're in the public comment section, so anybody's welcome to talk. I would like to, before we break up, just to let you know, Catherine, we did talk about the potential of having a small business energy advantage presentation as a way to sort of jumpstart the what's going on there.
Is that's not the chamber event?
That would be a presentation to this commission. It's just an offer I made to Stephen to say, depending how things are going, if it looks like they're going to get sidetracked, if you want to say, we'll have like ESC come in and make a presentation to us just to keep things moving. That's all. So but I'm open to other agenda items.
Oh, well, did you want me to give an update on the chamber thing? Did you guys cover that or not? Did you know what was going on?
Stephen is, yeah, talked about that right up under the SAG presentation, the third bullet point in. Yeah. So I think we have 8:30.
Oh, that's still in the works. You guys know that. That's
Yeah,
okay.
Catherine, it may be better if you gave an update. You know more than I do on it.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, we originally had a date of March 3rd to do a joint presentation, bring in some contractors, some people from EverSource, and partner with the Chamber of Commerce and our economic development department in the town, Kristen Gorski. We had to delay the March 23rd date because we didn't have the speakers lined up or kind of a flyer and promotional materials. I whipped up some promotional stuff and sent it to Kristen that she thought was great. You know, and this is not much. This is just little kind of things that can be used for Facebook postings and stuff like that. And Kristen is still trying to wrangle some speakers from EverSource and the Green Bank. We have, through Steve, ESC lined up for that, but the chamber has to pick a new date. And then we'll pull the pieces of that together. But the ball is in Kristen's court right now. So it will happen. I think they're both excited about it. We just missed our March 23rd deadline. So I think we're looking out more into April.
Great.
It sounded like once they have the pieces in place, it doesn't take them very long to put it together. So once we have the speakers identified, Kristen envisions having a kind of joint conference call with all the different speakers just to make sure we're on the same page and they know kind of what their segment of the panel is, and then doing some publicity.
I think that's great. I'll point out that Brantford and Wilton both have small business energy advantage programs, sort of campaigns in their town, so we can probably tap into them if we want.
Have they?
Bernie, I was reminded. Go ahead. Bernie, I was reminded of something today. I was in a 4-hour seminar on net zero building. And at the end, the presenter was talking about architects and ethics and responsibility to the earth and the environment. And he mentioned, reminded me that 20% of the U.S. greenhouse gases comes from leaky gas piping. And I'm just wondering, you know, is that something you can bring up with the environmental chair during your meeting and maybe get them to tackle that as, you know, a cause, or at least admit that it might be something under their preview as environmentalists?
That's a really good example of something that's really not, we know about it in our commission, but it's an environmental issue and it really belongs in that commission. And that's one of those gaps that yes, the answer is yes. Well, that would be an example, a prima facie example of something that I think we could get our heads around. And what you're talking about is methane leakage, and which is it's one of the few things that we can actually fix, and it will have a short-term beneficial impact. So it's one of the most powerful levers that we can pull, actually.
Well,
Carbon
yeah,
dioxide,
the problem is whose responsibility is it, and getting them to take responsibility for it, right?
Yep. Absolutely. That's a good example.
And it's one that often pays for itself as well.
Yep. Yeah, we're excellent point, Max. We complain about the price of natural gas and that it's leaking all over the place. So sometimes massively so, like out in Los Angeles a few years ago, and then sometimes with catastrophic impacts, like we saw that apartment building explosion down in New York City a month ago. So yeah, it's a big issue. Good.
Can I ask
make a motion?
Question?
What kind of question?
How are you guys planning on using potentially any of the American Rescue Plan Act funds for the green initiatives? Like how's West Hartford trying? I mean, I'm assuming you are trying to use that for some of the initiatives, but I just didn't hear any connection with that, because I am particularly interested in that, because Avon has some money, like as all the towns do, and I'm just, you know, I want to help our commission make a good pitch, you know, something that's going to work in order to, you know, benefit our town.
I'll give that to Catherine. I don't think we have too much great
So
thought.
most of the ARPA money that West Hartford has gotten to date has already been spoken for. Departments were asked to put forward projects, and some were selected for funding and some weren't, especially. So one thing in particular that did receive funding is the town has allocated $300,000 towards electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So that was something that did go through, but a lot of West Hartford's ARPA funds are going into, well, I mean, some of it's going into capital projects, like they are rebuilding Eisenhower Pool, but a lot of it is going into reimbursing wages and economic development things and stuff like that. There was, I don't know all the details. I sent this group around, and there have been some news articles exactly what that funding is going to in West Hartford. I shared with this group, and we spoke a little bit about before, that not a lot of that funding is going to supplement already pre-programmed capital improvement projects for town buildings, despite us putting forward quite a lot of projects. Those requests were not fulfilled. So, so a lot of those projects are staying the same in our capital improvement budget. But we are, as we just talked about, eyeballing any additional funds that might be coming, and our director of plant facilities is going to try to lobby again for some supplemental funding for our capital improvement plan, since we are getting a lot of feedback through RFP processes that what we want to do and accomplish with the funding we have is not enough.
Just wanted to thank you all for your time tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Michael, feel free to ask some more questions. And before we end, I wanted to ask, I don't know if you guys talked about before I left, I wanted to hear a little bit from Mason if he has any ideas about how this group could collaborate more and work with the high schools.
Yeah, well, I'm a part of the environmental club, obviously at Conard, and I know there's one at Hall too. We have like meetings like once a month around that, and I don't know like the best way that we could like integrate you guys into it, but maybe like having one of you speak or have a presentation that we could present, because I know we have a lot of people in the club, around like 40, I think, and yeah, it's pretty big. It started like a couple years ago. And right now we're working on like our Earth Day project, but there's definitely other things because usually we have a project every month that we work on. So if there's anything that you guys think we could personally do in the high schools, I could definitely relay that information to like our group leader.
What are some of the projects that you guys have done?
Well, right now, obviously the huge one is this Earth Day project, which is gonna mainly take place the week of Earth Day. We have different groups. One group is like planting trees, one is decorating the school to raise awareness. My group that I'm leading is like the Instagram group where we're gonna post information and overall general facts about Earth Day and stuff. There's also the community group, because in West Hartford Public Schools we have like this sectioned off period on Wednesdays where we share information about a lot of different things, from like mental health to like other things that we are doing. So definitely environmental, the environmental club is going to do that. We also have our newspaper and a bunch of other things like that. Some of our past projects have been like Instagram posts for like the school Instagram, and I can't name all of them, but we've done like tree planting and other stuff like that.
That's cool. And I see Christine has her hands up before, but before that, we could present to you. It might be interesting if some of your projects were shareable, either as slides or even a small presentation to this group as well. So there's two ways. So good, Christine.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, hi again, everyone. I am very interested in the April 19 solar presentation. A family member is getting ready to do solar, and she asked me to convey to you. I mean, she doesn't, I think she knows it's the commission, but it was more like those clean energy people, like tell the clean energy people to please have a program that really explains in very clear language how to get solar, and the options, like I think one of the options is leasing. I'm not sure that they're all called leasing, but it's the non-buying, and then there's the buying, and how does each of those work, and what are the pros and cons of each. She has actually been approached by a contractor that does the non-buying option, and yeah, that is attractive because there's no upfront cost. But I don't know if it's the best option. And I've heard other things, like a real estate agent told us that the leasing options don't transfer to new owners, which I don't think is really true, but she says that real estate agents don't like solar. And so there are all sorts of aspects of this. So all the different pieces of this and how to do it. And in addition, including things like how do you do the permitting? So if you're looking for ideas on how to go forward, you know, think of my family member who's in this situation, wanting to make a decision, and wanting to make the right decision. And how would you, if your family member, you know, your cousin cornered you over Thanksgiving dinner or whatever, and made you tell them, you know, sit there for an hour and tell them what to do and how to do it, what would be the clearest and most straightforward and most helpful way that you could do it?
I think you pretty well laid out what we hope to accomplish. I think that's
great.
We try.
That's great.
Your family member.
We'll be there.
That's great to hear, and thanks for the push.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we'll make it personal. I mean, as most of you know, because I've mentioned in other meetings, my husband and I rent. So while we are looking into the HES, that piece of things is not something that we have open to us right now, unless we could, well, actually the house is not good. It's very shaded. The whole thing is very shaded, but especially the long sides are shaded. Unless ground mounted solar. Is there portable ground mounted solar that we could get and then we could carry with us?
Catherine has a solar panel in her office. You can probably rent from her. But Dave, you put your hand up. I think Joe has got his physical hand up. So Dave, you go, and then Joe. Up, you're on mute, Dave. You have to unmute yourself. Can you unmute yourself? No. Dave, we can't. Now we can hear you now.
I got the logic wrong here. Question was, when Michael came on at first, I thought his interest in Avon was to do with food, maybe recycling and so on. And Joe was active in that. We also had that thing about garbage in the schools and recycling the food. Is any of that, were you looking to, Michael, were you looking for our group to speak to that subject at all? Was that a thing of interest to you?
My main interest is increasing the solar potential.
Oh, I misunderstood then.
No, I was talking about Carrie Firestone, the chair. She has definitely an interest in recycling waste. And I don't know as much about that, but we're trying to, you know, do this in a comprehensive way. I believe the town is going to hire somebody, you know, right? We have all, you know, all of us are, you know, volunteers appointed or whatnot. But you know, the town is going to, you know, hire a manager to kind of look at this, you know, in the smartest possible way. For instance, like, you know, when I mentioned about the owner occupied buildings, I asked for a list and there was none. You'd have to kind of compile it and make one. And so that would be one of the things, you know, that this manager person could work on, you know, to kind of implement projects, so that we're kind of coordinated. So we're trying to do this smart. But
is this like a sustainability manager they're trying to hire, or just a assistant town manager position, or?
No, I think it's a short-term hire to help, you know, for a, you know, comprehensive plan.
Gotcha.
That they would probably use the ARPA funds for, you know, to pay that person for short term. And I know that you had mentioned, you know, that some of your money went to wages, and I know that Avon, including myself, is not interested in that. It sounds like a longer term commitment. But anyway, I don't want to, like, you know, it's late. I don't, you know.
Well, Michael, if Carrie Firestone or whoever it is, we also, in addition to my position, which is the part-time energy specialist, West Hartford has a part-time recycling coordinator. And Dave, to your point, Catherine Bruns, our recycling coordinator, focuses on recycling, but also our food waste program in our schools she started to revamp that program up, which went away during COVID. But she's got several elementary schools back up and running. And she's also focusing a lot on compost bin discounted sales to residents. There's a program for that and things. So I can send you, I'll get your contact information and maybe we want to connect those two as well. I don't know if Avon has a recycling coordinator or not.
Great. And I see, Christine, you posted the Greenwich has a pilot program as well, which is worth checking out, and that's available through the Sustainable CT website. So.
Yeah, it was featured recently on the website. So went to the website recently. It was the first thing that popped up is that there's a match program. So and I don't know what I don't know what Greenwich's thing looks like. It is a pilot project, but that does fall under the sustainability umbrella, which of course clean energy is related to, but it sort of more broadly falls into that umbrella.
Joe, you got your hand up?
Yes, I do. I had two thoughts. The first was making sure that our friends at the Conard Environmental Club are aware of our 24th celebration. And you're more than welcome to come and maybe even volunteer. We've got a lot of games and we expect to have a lot of families there. And, you know, part of what we try to do is not only teach and get our high schoolers involved, but kind of educate the youth. And because it's an easy time for them to learn these things and to kind of incorporate them into their lives. And having a high schooler, you know, throwing a football back to them, you know, would probably be more than one of us anyway. But yeah, so come over and enjoy the celebration there. See what's going on.
Joe, to that point, I'm working on an email message to Mariah Steck, and is that your advisor for that club, Mason?
No.
Okay, well, that's what it says on the website, on the school website, but if you can tell me who who it should be, I can send it to them.
Yeah, I'll find the email and I'll paste it in the chat.
Okay, thanks.
And then, you know, secondly, talking to the Avon, you know, we gained a lot of traction from the street lights. I don't know if you've done a street light program in Avon, but, you know, maybe looking back on some of the programs that we've already instituted would be a way for you to get started and spending some of that money. I don't know.
Thanks for that advice. I think that they have done a lot of work on the street lights already, but I'm not 100% on that.
Your street lights have been retrofitted. I don't know whether I have this feeling that you guys did not purchase your street lights, but I could be wrong on that. Because that's always the question, is whether Eversource, the utility, still owns the streetlights or the town has purchased them. West Hartford owns its streetlights, but I'm not 100% sure about Avon. But they are all LED. When I drive through there, I see them.
Just a quick question: what's the advantage of the town owning the lights?
So, well, obviously there's a cost to owning the lights, and then you are responsible for the maintenance of those lights. But the upside is that they are then put on a different rate structure where all you're paying for is the cost of the energy. If the utility owns the street lights, the rate structure includes payment. So your monthly utility bill includes payment to cover their operation and maintenance, And basically, part of the capital cost of those lights kind of depreciated over time. So that's built into the rate structure. So the town actually pays a lot more on the utility bill for the lights. But you know, there are trade-offs, because if you don't, for example, West Hartford has a street lighting crew, so we are able to maintain our own lights. You know, if there are issues or things, we can go out. We have bucket trucks and we have people who can maintain those lights. If you don't have that in-house, then you would be on the hook to contract with someone to provide those services as well. So there are trade-offs, and I'm sure people in Avon, when they were looking at moving to LEDs, had those conversation and made those decisions.
Excellent.
Yeah, and Mason, I was just going to throw out there the offer. You said maybe some of us could come speak. So if your group is ever interested in a presentation from me, kind of focused on, you know, the energy use of Conard or the school system in general. And, you know, I can show you how to access the real-time data on the solar system that's on Conard. So I'm happy to do something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Excellent. And let me just share one quick thing to just talk about Joe's point. This is global CH4, which is methane, which is really most of natural gas. And what you see here is parts per billion, and this is a pretty steep and inexorable increase. It's actually going up faster than carbon dioxide, and in the short term, it's about 80 to 100 times more potent pound for pound or kilogram per kilogram than carbon dioxide. So just to emphasize the point about CH4. Any other comments before we break up? Okay, well,
Move to adjourn.
You're a leader among men, Joe. Thank you for that.
Good night, everyone.
Mason, thank you, Michael. Thank you, all commissioners, and have a good night. Stay safe.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Thanks, David, for getting us on screen.
No problem. Have a good night.
You too. David, you made it.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for your comments.